This is the most famous 2D game in 2025, and this is my silly 3D version. So when Hollow Knight Silksong came out, the internet went wild. Everyone's playing it and loving it, but here's the question. What if it was made in 3D? So let's make it happen. As usual, I started a brand new Unity project, and the first thing I worked on is the player. So I started writing the movement script that totally worked fine. Just like that, we had a fully working third-person player. It just needs a 3D model. Since the original game is 2D, finding a 3D model for the character is either gonna cost money or I'd have to rely on my remarkable modeling skills. But somehow, I found the exact model I needed for free. Now, sure, it's not really made for games, it needs a lot of adjustments, but it's definitely easier than modeling the whole character from scratch. So the first thing I had to do was adding an armature to the character so I could actually animate it. I also moved the sword to the character's back instead of the side. In 2D it looks perfect, but in 3D it looks weird. So the new spot honestly fits way better in my opinion, especially in third-person perspective. Then I made a few quick animations to test it in game, and everything was looking good. Except the character had no textures. So I spent a bit of time making the texture from scratch, and it actually turned out really good. And once I connected the control script to the model, I got even more hyped to see how the final game is gonna look. After that, I started working on the jump mechanics, which I thought it would be simple. First of all, the character in the original game doesn't do a normal jump. You actually jump higher the longer you hold the jump button, aka variable jump height. Luckily, adding it to my game was pretty simple and didn't take much time. The second thing I noticed is that when the player gets close to a ledge, he automatically climbs up and keeps moving, aka auto climbing. So the way I did it in my game is by giving the player two little sensors in front of him. If the lower one hits a wall while the upper one doesn't, the game will know that there is a climbable ledge. At that point, the player will move automatically along the blue arc you see until he reaches the target position. And it actually worked. Now we've got a player that auto climbs ledges perfectly fun. Now, the original game still has way more movement mechanics, but I'm gonna stop here so I don't end up spending more than 14 days on this project because I've got another game I'm working on and you'll be seeing it really soon. So make sure you're subscribed. Alright, now that we're done with the player movement, it's time for combat. The original game has a ton of different combat mechanics, so in this video we are sticking to the basic one using the player's needle. I started by making the attack animation in Blender. Adding it to the game should be simple. Or not. Now, the attacks felt really flat, so let's add some effects. I made a slash effect in Photoshop, put it in the game, and it already feels way better. Then, I added a little forward dash on the second hit. Now, it looked cool, but I realized the original game actually has a separate dash mechanic. So, to stay closer to the original, I separated the dash ability, so now when you press shift, you get a dash or even a speed boost if you hold the shift. I also noticed in the original game, you can hit the grass in the environment, so I figured that is the perfect way to test the combat system we just added. I found a plant model online, and with a little scripting, you can now slash the plants in my game. And you can even hit any wall in the game and it will spawn particles that match the wall's color. Pretty nice. Now it's time to add some enemies. For now, I'm sticking to enemies from the first area of the original game, the moss bone. In that area, you'll find two types of enemies, the little green crawler and the flying bug that hovers above you and tries to sting you. And there's a boss you're gonna find at the end. I'm adding that one at the end of the video, so make sure you watch till the end because it's gonna look so cool. I started searching online for a model of the crawler and the flying bug, and I couldn't find anything. So I had two options: either pay a freelancer some money to model the enemies for me, or make the models myself. Yeah, I made this. The final result always make you forget all the suffering you had for some reason. By the way, in the original game, the crawler's skin is basically moss, where mine has actual skin. So I just kept it that way because it looks better and easier. After a bit of work on the crawling animation, the crawler is finally ready in the game. All I had left to do was make it damage the player. And that's when I noticed something in the original game. Whenever the player or an enemy gets hit, there's this white flash effect. So I made a shader that turns the whole model white for a moment, and with a bit of scripting, here's the result. The crawler gets damaged when the player hits it, and the player gets damaged when he touches the crawler and loses one of his hearts. Oh, for the UI, yeah, I took it from the original original game and clean it up in Photoshop. So in the original game, you regain health using the soul meter, which is basically an energy bar that fills up the more you hit enemies. And when it's full, you press a button and all your hearts are restored. So I spent a good amount of time working on the animation and effects, and this is the final result after all that work. And this needs fixing. I also added more particles and effects in the game in general, and after finishing everything, the game felt way more alive. Alright, now I'm supposed to work on the second enemy, the fly. But honestly, I was sick of staring at those prototype cubes, and even though I'm still a total beginner at 3D modeling, I started building the first area of the original game, the moss bone. I opened Blender and got to work on a cave, added some trees, details, shapes, spent a lot of time on textures, and this is what I ended up with. Now, it's definitely better than just cubes, but something felt off. It didn't feel like a cave, it felt like a random model dropped into the game. Turns out the thing I was missing was lighting. So the first thing I did was disabling the sunlight because we were supposed to be in a cave. And after adding some lights, here's the final result. Since the environment is now done, I went back to working on the fly. And long story short, here's the final result inside the game. We have a bug that follows you and tries to sting you. Oh, and by the way, I added some outlines. It makes it look more like the original game and stops the characters from blending with the environment. And now, it's time to work on the first boss in the game, the Moss Mother. She has two main abilities. She either attacks you and tries to sting you, or she hits the ceiling and drops some crawlers. So I started modeling the boss, then made the textures, and once I brought it into the game, wow, it looks amazing. In the original game, the boss gets out of its cocoon, screams, and then the fight begins. So I made the scream animation and some effects, and this is how it turned out. For her first ability, I made it real quick and the final result turned out fine. And her second ability, dropping worms and rocks from the ceiling, that one was also pretty simple. I made a warning particle to show where something is about to fall, and then either a rock drops and damages you, or a crawler drops and you have to kill it. The only thing missing now is the arena where you fight the boss. So I hopped into Blender, modeled one from scratch, made a texture for it, and this is how it looks in game. I think now this is all I got, so let's see the final result.
Friend.
I know the demo might not be perfect, but this is everything I was able to pull off in just 14 days. But honestly, I had a blast working on this project. If you are still watching at this point, please make sure you're subscribed because Upside Down, the game I've been working on for a while, is coming really soon. And yeah, goodbye.